Have you ever been on Zillow and just start browsing houses and then just immediately get slapped in the face with all how expensive freaking houses are now? According to Motley Fool, the median home sales price in the first quarter of 2023 was $436,800. So now that home ownership is as unobtainable as it is for me to receive my dad's love and affection and respect. In this video, we're going to break down if you can actually afford a home for $400,000. This means we're gonna break down what the budget should look like, how much money you need to be making, how much is it gonna cost out of your pocket, and overall, if you pass the general vibe check to see if you are worthy to buy a $400,000 home. I know it sounds like really brutal, but this is the society we're living in today. So first, let's break down what a mortgage payment will look like. A mortgage payment has 5 different factors. There's your principal, there's your interest, there is your hazard insurance, there is your taxes, and there is your mortgage insurance. Now, out of these 5 things, there are 2 things we can safely predict for every single situation, and that is your principal and interest. Now, with the remaining 3, 2 of them can kind of be predicted a little bit, and that would be your mortgage insurance and your hazard insurance. Now, there's some states out there like Florida that are in a crazy situation where home insurance is like going crazy high, so we're not considering that. But for home insurance, we're going to use an average of about $2,000 a year for a premium. So we're going to divide that by 12, and obviously that's going to be our number we're going to include in our payment. And for our mortgage insurance, obviously this varies. If you put 20% down, this is going to be 0. Or if you're buying a house with a conventional financing and you have really great credit, this might be only 20, 40, 50, 60 bucks. It will be very minimal. But if you're buying like with FHA or with a lower down payment, or your credit isn't as great, you might see this number being $100 to $200. So just to be safe, we're going to put $100, but consider those things if you're doing your own calculations. So this leaves our taxes. So what we're going to do for our taxes is we're going to basically break down 3. We're going to break down a low tax state, a medium tax state, and a high tax state. So for our low, we're going to do $2,000. For our medium, we're going to use $4,000. For our high, we're going to use $6,000. Yes, can you believe it? There are states out there that charge over $5,000 a year just for property taxes. A moment of silence for everyone that lives in those states. All right, so now what we're gonna do is let's figure out our principal and interest. Now you can find this number on any mortgage calculator. What I highly recommend you do, because you're a smart person. I'm not the smartest person, and I figured out how to do this, so you can definitely figure it out. You can actually make your own mortgage calculator on any Excel sheet. You're gonna have to learn a little, you're gonna have to Google a little, but I would highly recommend you do this instead, because you get to get a really good understanding of the numbers. You can create your own amortization schedule so you can see how much interest you pay over like the life of the loan, and you can get really in depth. Now, if you don't want to do it, I do have a Patreon that has this already made for you that you can definitely use and build from that point on, but really take the time to learn it. I think you're going to be really grateful. So for a $400,000 house with a 5% down conventional loan, for 3%, that principal and interest looks like $1,602.10. At 5% mortgage, it's going to be $2,039.92. At 7% of interest, we're going to pay $2,528.15. At 9%, we're paying $3,057.57. Why did I put 9% interest? I hope that it never gets to that point, but these videos tend to live a very long time. And I really hope that whoever's watching this in the future is not using that. I'm just including it in there. It's also kind of depressing to see how low the payments were at 3%. And it really puts things in perspective, right? Like when interest rates were like at 2 or 3% during the pandemic, it made sense why a lot of people were buying, because they were buying houses that normally they wouldn't have been able to afford. But anyways, back to it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to input our averages that we've discussed. For our mortgage insurance, we're going to do $100 a month. For our home insurance, we're going to do about a $2,000 annual, so about $166.67 a month. And we're going to calculate different scenarios based on the property taxes. So I created this little quick sheet or cheat sheet to help us. We can see here, and we can kind of get a good idea of what your situation looks like. So for me, example, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. We tend to be in a low tax state. At 7% interest, we're going to have a monthly payment of $29.61.48. Now, of course, these numbers here are assuming that the mortgage insurance is 100 and assuming that their hazard insurance is 166. So let's just use this for educational purposes. Now, if you're in a high property estate tax, maybe it's a little less affordable for you to afford a home, which is insane. I'm sorry. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to do 7% at medium tax rate, just to get a good general vibe, which means it's $3,128.15. We could do the 3% or 5%, but that's just not what's happening right now. And I hope one day that is happening and we're all living in harmony and life is great. So now we have a great understanding of what goes into a mortgage payment. Let's talk about the actual budget. For this video, we're going to use the 50-30-20 rule. The 50-30-20 rule is a popular budgeting method that splits your monthly income into three main categories. 50% of your income goes to needs like housing, food, transportation, basic utilities, loan payments. 30% goes to your wants, which is your monthly subscriptions, your travel, entertainment, meals, and 20% goes towards your savings and debt. In addition to the 50-30-20 rule, we're also going to incorporate our mortgage rule, which we want to try to have our mortgage payment be under 30% of our monthly income. So to figure out our budget, I used a very basic budgeting template. I just literally created this. Hopefully you guys have something similar to this that you actually track a little more. I also pull these numbers just from a general idea of what these numbers look like based on a bunch of sheets I've looked at online. You could laugh and say, oh my God, $400 for utility, I only pay $150. Well, you know, there's maybe some areas that are more or less. So just use this for educational purposes. Now, obviously the biggest thing that pops up here is that mortgage payment, because in this example, we're using $31.28.15. So now we can already tell the total is $54.73, which is really scary. Because if we look at that, we say, okay, get this number, multiply it by 12. That's like already $65K a year you have to make just to make the actual, just barely get by. And of course, this is with no savings. So if we incorporate like a minimum saving like $1,000 or something, then this just makes everything go crazy, right? So this is just living by the skin of our teeth. So how does it look like to actually be able to live this comfortably? Well, like we said earlier, the rule of thought is we're trying to keep this mortgage payment under 30% of our net income, so we are not house poor. So if we're trying to keep this under 30% of our net income, then all we can do is work our way, do some like reverse math to figure out what that net income should look like to live comfortably. So if X equals the amount that we need to be making, and $3,128.15 is 30% of that number, X multiplied by 0.30 or 30% equals $3,128.15. Taking us back to high school algebra, we divide the number away from X, and that means we divide $3,128.15 by 0.30. That number is $10,427.17. In order for you to live comfortably in this house, you need to be making $10,427.17 a month. Now, looking back at the screen, you can see it does put us in a fairly good position. Because we can save, essentially $4 to $5K. And of course, this is very bare bones. You can definitely take on more subscriptions and stuff like that. And hopefully, but if you keep this bare bones, you have a bunch of money still to save a month. You can save up to $5,000, $4,000 a month, or you can build on your retirement, et cetera, et cetera. But having that mortgage be 30% is really helpful and frees a lot of things up. So how much does it look like to make annually if you're netting $10,427? Well, that's our net income, not our gross income. If we're assuming your net income is 75% of your gross income, which to get that, we would do $10,427.17. We divide that by 0.75, and that gives us about $13,902. So that would be your gross monthly income. You need to be making that much money a month on your salary, like not necessarily take home pay, because that's different. So your annual income on paper should look like $166,000, with our average income being like between $50,000 to $80,000. This is completely insane. In order for you to be able to afford comfortably your house, you would have to be basically making big baller money already, like over six figures. That's like a great goal for all of us to have to be in this position. The reality is most people aren't making this much money and they're still buying. Now there's a lot to say here, but before we move on there, let's just quickly talk about the cost to get into a house at $400K. It would be 5% down, which would be approximately $20,000. Average closing cost would be about $10,000, maybe add another $1 or $2K for inspections, appraisal. Your out-of-pocket cost should be $30,000 to $35,000 if you're putting 5% down, and anything more that you add on the down payment on top of that, of course, will add how much money you're going to have to come up with. And of course, if you can get the seller to pay any of those closing costs, that will reduce anything. So that'll give you an idea of what you need to pay. So obviously we're talking about the best case scenario here. Like the reality of the situation is I doubt most people that are buying a $400,000 house are making $166,000 annually. This is the absolute best case scenario, but it kind of sets things up a little weirdly, right? Like if all these people are buying 400K houses and they're not making 166 a year, well, how does their budget look like? Well, I think it looks a lot tighter. Here's the thing. What you qualify for is different than what you can afford. What you qualify for is quite simply just 50% of your gross monthly income. At relatively low, let's say you have no debt, the monthly payment you need to qualify for is $3,200 a month. If we double that, that's $6,400 a month. So if you're making approximately 6 to 7K and you have low debt, you could technically qualify for a house. And at $7,000 a month, I mean, I guess it works, but it just makes things very tight. So now more than ever, like I'm not here to discourage you. Homeownership should be something you obtain for, because not for financial reasons, not for it's a great investment, you're gonna make your money back. Baloney. Real estate is no longer a strong, solid investment. It is now something you're doing for your own personal goals. You want to own a piece of property. You want to be able to say, I own this, as I own a part of the United States of America. Me. I own where I live. I don't have a landlord, and this is something that's important to me. Like, you have to have other reasons now other than real estate and investment. If this video scared you, good. It should feel scary. You should be looking deep into your finances. You should be looking into your budget to see what works. Because if those numbers don't work for you, the lender's saying, hey, guess what, bud? You qualify for 420K, and you're just like, yeah. But you didn't do any of the research to figure out what you should actually afford. You need to go back and you need to start doing a deep dive. A great place to start is a video I recently made talking about what you can actually afford if you make $50,000 a year. So go check that video out now. Let me know what you think. See you guys in the next video.